Today we have with us once again Janakiram, MSV, Principal Analyst at Janakiram Associates. Jani, it's great to have you back on the show.
Hey Swapnil, great to be back.
And you were at AWS reInvent last week. Tell us, what was the single most important takeaway from the event?
So as expected, it was generative AI all over, right from the word get-go when Adam Selipsky got on stage. The entire keynote was focused on generative AI. There were at least a few hundred sessions on generative AI. It was Gen AI everywhere. So if there is a single key takeaway, it is generative AI. So AWS has been very strategically investing because there is a perception that they are lagging behind when it comes to competition. So this time AWS made sure they put the word out. So there are a few investments. So Deepak Singh, who is a veteran at AWS, who has been instrumental in getting EC2 out and then the container and serverless out, is now responsible for a new initiative called the Next Gen Developer Experience. So he recently moved, I think sometime in May, Deepak Singh was chartered with this new role of infusing AI into AWS and almost every service. So he assembled a team that is now working feverishly to bring Gen AI to customers and also bring Gen AI into almost every product horizontally across AWS. So coming back, the single most important takeaway is AWS making a statement that they are right there, leading from front and center, and it's Gen AI everywhere.
Earlier, before AWS reInvent, we also, talked about kind of your wish list. Talk a bit about how many items in your wish list were there that Amazon delivered on.
It's again, it was exciting to see 4 out of those 5 predictions / wish list come true. So we talked about Amazon launching a new chatbot, and that was announced in the form of Amazon Q. The second was a serverless tooling and serverless capability to bring Bedrock-based applications or Gen AI-based applications. And now, in fact, I did call out AWS Step Functions integration with Bedrock, and that was announced. So now the developers can build no-code, low-code applications just by using Step Functions with Bedrock. So that was the second prediction. Third is vector databases. Amazon basically ticking the checkbox for vector databases on every relational and NoSQL database. That was announced. And then I also predicted there is going to be Olympus, which is the next generation Titan, but that didn't really happen. That's the one that didn't come out at reInvent 2023, but I'm very sure that's in the pipeline. We may hear about that sometime soon. And finally, multimodal. So now Bedrock has a couple of multimodal capabilities. The first one is Amazon launched Titan image generator, adding to Stable Diffusion and the other forward-looking, futuristic image generators that may come up on Bedrock. And they also announced vector support for multimodal, which means you can actually store not just the word embeddings and text embeddings, but you can now use something like Clip to turn images into vectors. So that, again, something that I predicted, multimodal capabilities for Bedrock, that actually came true. So 4 out of 5 that we discussed showed up at AWS, and it was pretty exciting to see them.
Now let's talk about Amazon Q. When you look at Q, also Amazon's, if you look at the whole Alexa, there was a big ecosystem there, but none of these became quite. There are a lot of jokes about Siri, there are a lot of jokes about Alexa as well, and of course, Google Assistant is also their distant Cortana. It's actually more popular in the Halo game, which I play, versus in the as a voice assistant. So talk a bit about what it is, what is the strategy there, and how different is it from the consumer-facing voice assistant that Amazon had so far?
So, Swapnil, we cannot really compare the first generation voice assistants with the latest chatbots. They are actually two different technologies. What it actually means is Amazon cannot bring the backend that powers Alexa, which is Lex, to the forefront and package that and repackage that as a chatbot. It doesn't work. So they had to build something from the ground up. And just like Microsoft has Copilot and Google has Duet AI, Amazon's answer to those is Amazon Q. So Amazon Q is the chatbot that takes advantage of the underlying LLMs. And Amazon Q is available in two flavors. One is Q for builders and Q for business. So Q for builders encompasses the developers and operators scenarios. For example, if I am a user of AWS Management Console, as I predicted earlier, there is a Q icon sitting right at the top. I can click that and I can ask questions. And it will help me with a variety of things like choosing the right EC2 instance, helping me with the architecture. And Amazon has also integrated Q with something called Code Catalyst, which is their developer service. And there you can actually use Amazon Q to evolve features, which is pretty interesting. And then they extended that to Code Whisperer and brought a Q plugin to VS Code, which means you can chat with Amazon Q while you're coding and perform some operator related tasks like packaging your code into containers and deploying them to maybe ECS and so on. So that gambit covers the entire DevOps lifecycle and DevOps persona of the user. Then there is Amazon Q for business. And this is exactly like how Microsoft is positioning Copilot. So as I mentioned earlier, one of the key differentiating factors for AWS is data. Zettabytes of data lives on Amazon, and they want to enable customers to build intelligent chatbots interfacing with that data. So the Amazon Q for business is essentially that. So it enables customers to pull the data from all the sources that they have within AWS, but they also integrated that with third-party sources like Salesforce and Microsoft 365 and Workday. So you can basically mesh or blend the data from the sources residing within AWS and third-party data sources and build a queue front end. So that's a very powerful approach. So Amazon Q is AWS answer to Copilot and Duet AI. So I spent a lot of time playing with Amazon Q as a builder. And honestly, it's a bit underwhelming because it doesn't solve a lot of problems. It is just a dumb chatbot sitting there and responding to basic queries that I can find in the documentation. It doesn't go beyond responding with a step-by-step guide or a pointer back to the docs. I think AWS has some work to do there, but it's a good start. I think they'll infuse more intelligence to Q as they go along. But it's a compelling, promising, potential platform for both businesses and for builders.
The scale at which AWS operates, they can put in everyone. But if I ask you to summarize or sum up, how would you describe the overall Gen AI strategy for AWS?
The strange thing is, if you abstract the framework of Microsoft, Google, and AWS, they start to look very similar and identical. So remember a couple of weeks ago, we discussed Microsoft's strategy for Gen AI. Now, when we look at AWS Gen AI strategy, it looks so identical to what Microsoft is doing. So let me give you the big picture and then tell you a few things that are similar and few things that are somewhat different. So the first thing is the hardware. Amazon has the heritage of building homegrown purpose-built chips. They have ARM-based Graviton, and this time they launched a new flavor of Graviton, which is Graviton 4. So that is going to be the bedrock, the foundation for new gen modern workloads. And then they have AWS Nitro, which is their data processing unit that handles the offloading of virtualization, storage, security, and network. And then they have two purpose-built AI accelerators. One is Inferentia for performing inference, and then there is something called Trainium, which is a purpose-built chip to accelerate AI training. So that is the foundation, that is the hardware foundation. And on top of that, they have a model catalog, and they are bringing foundation models in the form of Bedrock. So Bedrock is the second layer that sits on top of the compute layer and provides model as a service. And on top of Bedrock, they have multiple retrieval and search products, for example, vector databases. So when we talk about vector databases, AWS made sure they brought vector search capabilities to almost every database that they have, whether it is Amazon Aurora serverless, Amazon OpenSearch serverless, RDS, DynamoDB, you name it, and you have a vector search and a vector database capability attached to it. So that forms the next layer, which is all about data. And then they built this whole developer tooling and more advanced capabilities available to ML researchers in the form of SageMaker. So SageMaker has been around for a while, but now that's tweaked to provide more capabilities in terms of fine-tuning the foundation models and even pre-training. So it caters to ML researchers and more skilled ML engineers. So that forms the tooling part. And finally, the topmost layer is all about building the AI applications, and Amazon has built a couple of its own applications in the form of Amazon Q, which is a chatbot. We'll talk more about that in a minute. But if you visualize, that is the entire stack. The bottommost layer is homegrown, purpose-built hardware, and the topmost layer is the AI applications. Now, this is so similar to what Microsoft and Google are doing. You can basically map them to, for example, the Amazon Q is exactly like Microsoft Copilot, and SageMaker is like Azure ML Studio. Bedrock is again Azure ML with Azure OpenAI combination, and vector database is available in Cosmos DB and their Microsoft Fabric, as we discussed. So it's very identical. I think this is evolving to be a blueprint for all the hyperscalers.
When we look at AWS, when we look at, of course, we can talk about whole, OpenAI, Microsoft, Google. What difference you see in AWS Gen AI approach versus others?
Yeah, it's interesting. As I mentioned, all the hyperscalers started to look alike. They have a very similar framework, blueprint, approach, strategy, whatever you call. They look very identical. But what stands out with AWS is, let me pull up my notes. So I think Amazon's USP is purpose-built hardware. They are actually delivering innovation at the hardware level, from AWS Nitro to Graviton to Trainium and Inferentia. That is a very, very important differentiator. And what it actually means is when foundation models become mainstream, when customers tend to pre-train models, fine-tune models, the price performance ratio that Amazon would be able to deliver with the homegrown hardware is going to be significant. It is going to become way cheaper for customers to fine-tune models and to run Gen AI workloads. So Amazon's secret sauce will move from software to hardware. That is the biggest differentiating factor. So when customers look at a comparative analysis on how much does it cost to fine-tune a model, to pre-train a model, or to run a model on AWS versus Microsoft versus Google, Amazon is going to look far more cheaper. I think that is going to be one of the differentiating factor, and that is where the hardware innovation comes up. The second one, which is very unlike Amazon, is the choice of foundation models. So Amazon always puts the first-party product or a service as the primary service. Though they adopt a lot of open source, they brand it as a managed service, and it becomes a first-party service. But for the first time in the history of AWS, I have seen partners getting a lot of attention, and Amazon giving enough importance to model providers, whether it is Anthropic, in which of course Amazon has invested, and AI21, Stable Diffusion, Cohere. They basically got all these models, and they also got Llama from Meta, and they're partnering with Meta. So the differentiating factor there is the best of the breed models coming from first party, which is Amazon investing in Titan. Second is the most prominent commercial models in the form of Anthropic Claude 2, Jurassic from AI21, or Cohere's Command. That is the proprietary choice of foundation models that are available. Third is the collection of open models, whether it is Falcon or Llama or Mistral eventually. So all of those will become available, and this wide range of foundation models and the choice will actually become a key differentiating factor. Third one, which is again very unique to AWS, and they're going to really capitalize on this, is the data gravity. So if you look at S3, Redshift, RDS, Aurora, and a variety of data services that Amazon has, a significant part of internet data lives on AWS cloud. Now, they're going to enable GenAI with all those investments and enabling customers to basically bring the data living in all these sources into their applications and their GenAI applications. And honestly speaking, Amazon hasn't done as much as it needs to do with that, in the sense connecting the dots across various data services and building pipelines to feed the data into GenAI foundation models. But eventually, that is going to become their biggest differentiating factor, because just like they say, a significant part of internet runs on AWS, a significant part of data lives on AWS, and enabling customers to consume that data in a very effective mechanism to build foundation models or train foundation models and build GenAI applications, a key differentiating factor. To summarize, hardware innovation, choice of models, and data gravity. I think those are the key differentiating factors for AWS.
AWS, primarily dominates the space. As you also said, internet more or less lives on AWS. But there are some races that they did lose. Of course, gaming was one. Luna is there. I have a controller. I don't play it because of latency. The whole Alexa ecosystem was there, but it's not as powerful as the competitors are. They came up with their TVs and stuff. When it comes to generative AI, do you see they will be able to replicate the success of AWS as a public cloud, or you see that the other players have a lot of edge there for Amazon to pick up the pace?
When we stack up AWS, Google, and Microsoft, I think Microsoft is way ahead. They were the first to actually find the opportunity, and Satya was fast tracking the whole development. Their investments in OpenAI and their ability to sense the opportunity at the right time. So Microsoft is way ahead in terms of infusing GenAI into almost every product, from Windows to Office to Azure, everywhere. And the best thing is, it is not just about infusing GenAI, but they put a fantastic business model, and it is going to translate to $1 billion business for Microsoft in a couple of years. A very smart strategy. And they're also reducing their dependency on OpenAI by building smaller language models in-house. So bottom line, Microsoft is way ahead. Google, yesterday announced Gemini, and it's very promising. Google's secret sauce and their biggest trump card is Google DeepMind. So Google DeepMind is the research arm that Google acquired a while ago, and they are doing fantastic stuff. They are actually researching quite a bit, and they are the game changers. They are the ones who found the transformer model. They are the ones who actually led some significant research and some milestones in AI and generative AI. So Google is going to rely more and more on DeepMind for innovation and research and bringing more AI to the forefront. But if you look at Amazon was not ready for this. They were suddenly woken up to the fact that GenAI is becoming mainstream, and they had to quickly do a catch up. And the biggest setback for Amazon is they don't have a research arm compared to MSR, which is Microsoft Research, or Google DeepMind. So they are relying on the ecosystem and third party to bring in these capabilities. And that's the reason why I said, for the first time in the history of AWS, they call themselves as the Switzerland of Gen AI. And Amazon never uses terms like multi-cloud, Switzerland of public cloud, hybrid cloud. These are all the taboo words within Amazon. But for the first time, I have heard Amazon execs claim that they are the Switzerland of Gen AI. And that actually shows that they are on a back foot, and they are promoting third-party models, and they are relying on partners and their investment in Anthropic to actually build the Gen AI strategy. So it will take some time for AWS to really get everything lined up and compete aggressively with Microsoft and Google. But it's a good start. We cannot comment because these are very early days, and Amazon will put all their, they'll fire from all the cylinders to ensure they are in the race and they are leading the race. But as of now, it looks like they are on a back foot and they're trying to play catch up.
Johnny, thank you so much for taking time out today and talk about your takeaway from reInvent. And as usual, I would love to chat with you again. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks, Swapnil.